speaking in English in spite of our Spanish. We know, that your Spanish, your English is very well. So we'd like also to take advantage of your excellent English level. And well, at the end, maybe I discussed with Monica yesterday. Maybe at the end we can have maybe a 15 minutes discussion in Spanish. But
No problem, of course.
yeah. Great. So thank you. Thank you, Amanda, for being here. This is the International Business and Relations program. It's a program in international studies. We are very concerned about the international issues regarding the management, international business, international relations, our preoccupations for what is going on with the international system, with the interaction also with um, multinational corporations, with management to make firms, small and medium enterprises better. We're also very worried for what is going on with our planet Earth, sustainability and so on. The political issues are also very important, but what we've seen in Latin America is breakup between what we teach, what we research, and what is going on in our society. And I really think it's very important to have people like you, that are within the international scenarios, trying to help us understand, what is going on, what we need, what we need to teach, what we need to research, to make our region, to make our country better. We know all your experience. We know all what you have to say about multiculturality, about gender, of course, the fact that we have a very important women as leader in the international arena is very important for us. We have a lot of researchers in our program researching about gender. That's very important. And what we've seen in the region, it's a difficulty to differentiate between disciplines. It's very difficult for us to understand sometimes the differences between international management, international relations, international business. But the most important thing is that we have um, lost the critical perspective in international business, the critical perspective in the analysis of the international society. So with people like you, with all your experience, we can understand more the international system, the relationship between firms. And this is why you are here. Thank you for the invitation. We hope we can continue learning from people like you, with all your managerial skills. And so that's it. Welcome. Thank you. Hope to continue, discussing with you for many years, maybe researching and helping with you. So Professor Irma is going to talk to you, about these very important issues. So thank you, Professor Irma. She is one of our researchers, professor. She's a PhD in political science, an expert also in international commerce. So I'm sure you will guys have a very interesting discussion for today. So welcome, Irma. Thank you for accepting this invitation, and let's start.
Thank you a lot, Amanda. Welcome to the university too. This is very, very interesting to have your you actually here at the university explaining, talking about a little bit how it is innovation, how it is technology management, how is innovation management, and how is this women role taking place in that kind of industry, which is the most difficult part for women to enter to technology sector in today, and even before, and even more today. So so when we think about women in technology, I don't know, but for me the first person in mind is Ada Lovelace, this mathematician who really made a change in mathematics, but also in technology and computers, and changed the system. But when we talk about you, So that's kind of interesting to have your experience in here. And I would like to start like asking you or start this conversation like how you achieved this very important position in a global company. How was that process? Just tell us a little bit about this process. We all like to hear you.
Of course, Irma. Yeah, I'll be happy to answer the question, and thank you for the introduction as well. So how did I become, or how did I reach this position in a global company? I think it's a combination of two things. One is having hard skills, and when I say hard skills, I mean I'm an engineer. I have an electrical engineering degree, but I also have a lot of experience in software development. So that's one. The other part is having skills, which I got through my MBA. So I have a degree in management with emphasis in finance, and I understand marketing. So I have technical and business together. So that's really important because it gives me the knowledge. But knowledge is not the only thing that sets you apart. I think that's the what. The how is the personal behaviors. So that's what I bring to the table. That's more what Amanda is as a person. So I think that's where I would include my interpersonal skills. So how I work with others. It includes my ability to adapt to different cultures. I was born in Colombia. I lived in Canada, I lived in the US, I lived in Mexico, and I worked for different companies. And every place and every company has a different culture. So the ability to adapt. I am somebody with a lot of discipline, and I persevere. When I set a goal, I just work and work and work until I get there. So I don't give up. And I also have a positive mindset. If you've heard the phrase, 10% is what happens to you and 90% is how you react to it. So what mindset do you bring to anything you're doing? So those two things. But some people would say, hey, you're lucky to be there. And I say, well, I think that it's true that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And when I arrived in the United States in New York City 20 years ago, I had a degree in technology and I already spoke English. So speaking English was really key. And I got my first job, and from there I grew. I started to be as a individual contributor, as a software developer when I started my career years ago, and I went all the way up to managing a team of 500 people in different countries doing software development. So it's been a journey, and part of it is the academic degrees, and a lot of it is my personality, my behaviors, my discipline. But I've had different jobs in IT. So I started as a developer. I became a software development manager, managing teams of software developers. I've done different roles in IT, what we call production support, supporting the systems. I've done business analysis, project management, program management, and I have also done strategic roles like running the office of the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, who is the highest person in a company for technology. So I run IT as a business, thinking about budgets and people and strategy and efficiency. And so I've had both roles, the technical roles and the more strategic roles. And that's where I am now.
So you were talking about some soft skills, some hard skills, and some of those are very connected to your to this background that I mean, like a personal background, but also the academic background. But in terms, for example, of how you mix these different cultures or these different environments that you were in touch. So do you have any like advice for students? I mean, in order to get this process to start, because I think the most difficult part is how to start, and what could be the best way to reach this empowerment in technology or even in business in general. So how could be a good point to start? I mean, for students, for example.
Yeah, I think it always starts with us. And I think for me to navigate different worlds, to navigate different cultures, company cultures, or country cultures, I think one thing is I had an experience early in my life when I lived in Canada, and I lived with in a high school with people from 80 different countries. And so I had a lot of experiences, let's say, learning to understand other cultures. And I made friends from different countries. And so I was 16 when that happened. And so living in an international environment, I left Colombia when I was 16, and I would say my world was homogeneous, right? Everybody around me pretty much looked the same. Everybody around me was the same religion. Everybody around me was, speaking the same language. And then I moved to Canada, and well, people didn't speak Spanish when I got there. My friends, I had to learn a new language. Many people weren't Catholic. I even became good friends with somebody who was a Muslim. And I asked her, "Do you know who Jesus Christ is?" And she said, "I don't know who Jesus Christ is." And I couldn't believe that somebody in the world, and she was a really good person. So understanding that different cultures, different people could still be good, and that the concept of what's good is very relative. I think that was something I learned very early on in my experience. But I think also when I think about my career, because I have been in technology many times, I am the only woman in a room. Maybe it's the only woman in a virtual room or the only woman in a physical room. Sometimes I'm the only, if I'm not the only woman, I may be the only Latin, the only Hispanic person in the room. And so the feeling of being the only can also be, it could create a sense of isolation, but also as a leader now, I have a sense of empathy. So I would say start with you. Like imagine a time when you probably felt like you were the only. Maybe when you traveled to a place that you didn't know anybody, maybe when you started a new job and you were the new person who didn't know everybody else. And always imagine that other people can be in that role. And I think welcoming them and including them is part of developing the empathy to say the world is not just about how I feel, but it's about helping others connect.
Yes, and Manda, that was a very interesting advice, and and I think some of us we have already started maybe, so and some others we are just in the way. And that could be a good sense in order to improve our profile, in order to open our minds about this diversity and these multicultural environments. And in that way, I was wondering in which, I mean, when you are in this environment, when you are, the only woman in the room, well, so how it could be the journey for you? I mean, how it could be a day, a regular day, as a senior vice president in this
Yeah,
global company?
sure. So what is my day, a normal day for me in my job? Well, first of all, right now I'm working from home. So this that you see around me, this is my home in Raleigh, in North Carolina. I have been working from home for the last year and a half. In the pandemic, I changed jobs, but in both companies that I worked for, everybody was remote. So this is where I do my job, right? At one point, maybe the office will open up and we'll go to work, but right now everybody's at home. My workday starts around, let me say, 8 in the morning or 8:30 in the morning. And I have anywhere between 10 to 15 meetings a day. So I speak to people all the time. All the meetings are on video conferences. So I'm always on, always with a camera. Some meetings are meetings that I lead, where I am the chair of the meeting. Some meetings I attend to provide input or to listen in so that I know what's going on. In the meetings that I attend and that I lead, generally those meetings that are about reviewing the work that we're doing, providing input or soliciting input from others to make sure that we have enough information to move forward. I work with people who are experts in their fields. Like many of the technologies that I work with have been in technology for 20, 30, 40 years. So these are people who really know their field. And I'll give you an example. So right now we're doing a project, big project for the company to move our applications, our software from our data center to the cloud. So this move from data center to the cloud is a huge project. And I need to involve experts in security. So I work with the Chief Information Security Officer. I work with the Chief Technology Architect, because we need to make sure that as we move data to the cloud, that we do it in a secure way. That as we move data, that the applications can still talk and that the systems work. So for me, what's important is to bring perspectives, bring people, understand, and then together create a plan that can help us move to the cloud, let's say in a secure way. So that's one thing. I would add maybe one personal thing. My day is really busy. I try to make breaks in the day, but I can't always, but my day is really busy. And so for me, I know that I can only perform to the highest of my ability if I take care of myself first. So when I get up in the morning, I make sure, first of all, I make sure I sleep well. I make sure I eat well. So I try to eat only things that are nutritious. I try not to eat junk food. I exercise every day. I run, I walk, I swim, I do weights, whatever it is, but I exercise every day. And I meditate every day. And so when I start my working day, I have already done all of that. I've taken care of myself. And then I feel like I could give a lot. It's like being an athlete. If you are an athlete, you have to eat, sleep, train, and give yourself breaks. So that's the same thing that, maybe you could call it a corporate athlete. I'm not running marathons. I'm running meetings all day long and picking in my brain and picking in somebody's brain. But because it's so intense, I need to make sure that I take care of myself. And then when the day ends at around 6:30 p.m., I am a mom. I have 2 kids, and I do homework with them. I have dinner with them. I put them in bed. I tag them. I hug them. I am a mom. And then, maybe I connect for a few minutes to work, and then I go to bed. So during the week, there isn't a lot of time for TV or for friends. That's more on the weekend. The Monday through Friday is really work and kids, and then doing that self-care that I talked about, exercising, meditating, sleeping well, eating right.
Do you think that this I mean, the possibility to have the day, like split it between the working part and then your life, your family, I was thinking maybe this could be connected to the culture. So how American culture and maybe Canadian culture can incorporate or permits or allows to have both issues, both environments, going through the day. Maybe that could be, a way to. Do you consider this could be connected to the culture? Because in Latin America we used to have, more time dedicated to work, and then we think about family. So it's quite, in terms of importance. So we talk about families should be important in the first place, and then we have work. But actually, when we talk about time and how we split the journey, so it is even more concentrated in how much you work. But instead, maybe in some other cultures could be a little bit different. Do you consider there is any relationship between this?
I think,
manage?
yeah, I think the Latin culture is very focused on family. I agree. I think that there are other cultures, like the Indian culture, India as a country, I think they're very focused in family. I think the American culture is really focused on work, to be honest. But I think that this is where maybe me, being Latin, being Colombian, living in the United States, I see how much focus we give to family in Colombia, and I bring that in because I believe that's important. I still work hard. So you can handle both. I think that when it comes to culture and priorities, say family first or work first, I think you're right, Irma, that people would say the most important thing is my family, but then they're not really spending time with their family. But it's also hard when you're a working woman, right? Like you or I, because I can't spend all day long with my kids. But my kids are not here anyway because they go to school. So they go to school. It's not, even if I didn't work, I couldn't be with them. But I think for me, what's important is that I carve out time every day to be with them. And so I have dinner time is sacred. I will always be with them. Putting them in bed every day is sacred. So there are certain things I don't negotiate, right? Like you have these values. Like I said, I don't negotiate my mornings. I'm gonna get up. I'm gonna exercise. I'm gonna eat right. I'm gonna meditate. That's not. I don't negotiate it. Like my husband. Oh, can you help me? No. This is the time for me. In the evening, somebody from work. Oh, could we talk? No. This is the time for my family. And so sometimes it takes a lot of courage to say no, but that's the way that you can handle different priorities. Yeah, that's the way. That's the way I've done it.
Yes, excellent advice for those who are, in this role. And now in pandemic, it's like even more
Even harder.
hard. Yes,
Yep.
it is harder. I was so we know that, for example, the U.S., in terms of culture and how they manage gender gap, it has been, very discussed in the last years, but especially during this last month, it's very maybe could be in terms of politics, probably connected to how to decrease the gender gap and how to increase possibilities for women. And we have seen that only 25% of the top innovation firms are led by women. And for example, and last year in Fortune in journal review, they mentioned that there are just only 20% of women having or holding this kind of chief innovation officers or these positions of high level. So I was wondering about how you um, were through this entrepreneur role in in the different companies that you have been, and how how that you can just remark in any achievement where you led in an important project of your company. So can you think in any strategy? Can you think, or can you share any experience in terms of entrepreneurship and achievements in the companies that you have been?
Yeah, of course. So I'll start with something that I'm really proud of. And I'm proud of for me, but I'm also proud to say I'm Colombian and I represent Colombia, let's say, because it's me. But I am the lead inventor in a technology patent that MetLife, which is the prior company where I work for, filed in the US about a year and a half ago. The technology that we created is called, it scans applications to find, it's very technical, but it finds components that are out of currency and it rates them. So without getting into the details about what the invention is, I think what may be more important is to say, for a woman to reach, for me, it was definitely, it is still an honor to see my name as inventor Amanda Barkus. Why? It's special for many reasons. First, in software development and in technology per se, there is a lot of bias. And one of the biases is that people don't believe that that women can do technology well. People think that men are the ones who are good technologists or good software developers. So for me, defeating the stereotype of that and being able to see to come up with an invention that is patent worthy was very fulfilling. But also it was very rare for my company also to file for a patent. Like most technology patents are held by technology companies like Apple or Microsoft, but financial companies haven't historically filed for patents. They're starting to catch up. And so MetLife had only a few patents, mostly around processes and products, but not about technology. And so I believe maybe the patent for my invention was probably the first or one of the first patents that was ever filed for the company. So definitely an honor to be an inventor and be recognized formally as an inventor. Now, in terms of the strategy, and I think this is probably what I would say on what did I do to get there, because it's rare, and it's really valuable, but it's rare. So I don't know if maybe this community of people at La Salle have heard of open source software, but open source is definitely a movement where people who are highly skilled give their free time to develop something that they believe in. If you guys, anybody here has used Wikipedia, right? This website, you go and look for something and there is information on Wikipedia. And Wikipedia was created by the world, not one person or one company. Wikipedia is an aggregation of many people's knowledge, and somebody curates it, and there it is. You can use it, I can use it. With software, the same applies. So we have communities of software developers that have created open source software. Maybe you've heard of something called Linux, or maybe you have heard of something called Android. Android is what runs in many mobile devices, and Linux runs on servers. But open source is this concept that people will give their time for free, and they are masters at what they do, and they are doing it for free because they believe that what they are doing is good. The same concept of open source applies inside a company. We call it inner sourcing. Inner sourcing is when the people in a company work on something not because they have to, not because they are told, but because they want to. And so I went to several developers and I said, hey, could you help me? I want to create this. I have an idea, but they necessarily didn't work for me. So they said, okay, I'll help you in my free time. And so I collaborated with them. So that was one, is using people that know really well, something really well, and they're helping you because they want to, not because they have to. I also had a team of very diverse people. I think at the time, I probably had one of the most diverse teams in technology. I had people who were older, people who were younger. I had Chinese, I had Indians, I had Black, I had people who have been in the military. I had a wide range of different experiences, different cultures, different ethnicities in my team. I believe absolutely that diversity can improve innovation because it's different perspectives, it's different ways to see a solution for the same problem. I also have this inclusive mindset where I ask people for their opinion, I bring them in, and I believe that makes people feel valued. And we use Agile, if you've heard of Agile software methodology. So we build what we call a minimal viable product. In other words, we didn't worry about creating the whole thing from the beginning. We just created a piece of it. We tested it, it worked, then we created more, then we more. And little by little, we would test it and see if it worked until it became this patent-worthy technology. So I would say one thing that I bring into it from how I see working with others is if you want to go fast, you go alone. You just run alone. But if you want to go far, you go with others. And so for me, this technology patent is not something I did on my own. It's something I did with many other people who I brought along to help me with it. So again, just to summarize, inner sourcing, so getting people to help you because they want to, diversity, inclusion, agile methodology, and going with others. That was my strategy for behind the technology patent.
So By the way, so how do you become more visible in order to be recognized as a leader? Since we have seen, I mean, your strategy is very, very interesting, and probably I'm just taking notes. So I think it could be very, very interesting to implement. And you got probably about this multiculturalism and also diversity and different backgrounds and so on. So how do you become more visible to be recognized as a leader in the field and also as a woman?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I would say, Irma, I think that maybe great leaders, I would say, don't set out to be leaders. I didn't start my career thinking I want to be a leader. But I think what finally, maybe what's key is that you're working. It's not about the role, it's about the goal. Like, what do you want to do, and pursuing it with passion. But okay, that sounds good and all, but maybe why me? And I think that first of all, I was good at what I did. And I think this is something for all of us to think about. No matter what you do, no matter if it's the job that you want to do, or if this is just a temporary job, or if this job is below your potential, or if this job is really not the thing that you really want to spend your time on, do it with excellence, because that's the foundation. You don't get to be a leader if the quality of what you produce is not excellent. Anything that has my name on it, I want it to be excellent. From the email that I write, to the products I create, to the software that anything has to be excellent. So that's foundational. And I had the skills, right? So I had an engineering degree, I had my MBA, so I had the knowledge, but applying myself and making sure that the product was excellent was my choice. Along the way, I had people that invested in me. I'm going to call them mentors, coaches, sponsors, people that taught me things, people that gave me feedback, sometimes hard feedback. I would cry because they would tell me something I didn't like, but never mind. Feedback is a gift. You take it. And people that were pulling me up, people that believed in me, that gave me opportunities. So that was also very important. I think that being recognized, Irma, as you said, there is an implication of being unique, being different. You don't get to be recognized if everybody is like you. You know, you to be recognized, you have to be unique, having something unique to offer. I think for me, one thing that sets me apart is that I am Colombian and that I am a woman. Because in any room, people would always hear like, oh, she's a woman, she's different, or she's Latin, she has an accent, she's different. And so initially I was a little shy because I'm like, I'm not like the rest, this is all men, I am just the woman, you know. But then I realized that what makes you different makes you unique, and what makes you unique can make you indispensable. And I think recognizing that in our uniqueness, there is power is something that I realized, you know, in that I bring value and I bring thoughts and experiences that men don't have or that people from other countries don't have. I bring them because I'm Colombian, and I bring them because I'm a woman. And that together with, you know, doing doing more than what I was asked for. I think that's also an important one. You don't get to be recognized if you don't do what you do with excellence, and if you don't do more than what you're asked to do. If you only do this little bit, okay, check, that meets the mark. But when you do more, people see it. So I think that's something to remember. I became a visible leader when I started to do more. And when I started to do more than what I was asked for, you know, I believe that initially at one point, maybe I was paid less than what I was doing. I was working really hard. But when you continue to that, there is a point where they pay you more money that you don't work as hard. They just pay you a lot of money for it. because you have all of this knowledge. And so don't worry about the pay or the recognition in the moment. It'll come later. Just do more than what you're asked to do and do it with excellence. And I think that's a way to be recognized as a leader.
Thank you, really, thank you. So I'm just going to take a couple of issues you mentioned. Excellence in the work that you do, the skills, and use them. The skills. I mean, we just forgot it in some moment, and do more what it was asked to you to do. So that was really interesting. And when you talk about, this terms of payment and salary, and the wage, it is very well known that this is one of those topics in order to close the gap in terms of gender, because it's very known that the gap is more or less 16% when we talk about women, men in STEM areas or in this STEM field. So that's something that we need to look at, but it's in in the long way. It could be, you can have the rewards, and you can have the improvement of your profile, and also the salary. So it could come later. So that could be another point. And but in terms of multiculturalism, because you mentioned also about working in a team, working with a team, and you mentioned this diversity, how you can get profit in terms of innovation because of this diversity. So how much is evident and important multiculturalism in your daily job? Could you just tell us, a story or some stories that you have in mind?
Yeah, sure, of course. So when I think about multiculturalism, I think about there is different cultures, country to country. So maybe Colombia is different than India, culturally speaking, but there is also a different culture company to company, right? I work for AIG and I used to work for MetLife. They're both about the same size, American companies, they sell insurance, and yet the culture inside feels different. And there is also, I would say, different cultures, industry to industry. So for example, um, let me just give you some example. For example, when I think about country to country, in terms of one element that I see across, hierarchy and respect for hierarchy. In Colombia, we're hierarchical, like what the boss says, what your parents say, what somebody older tells you to do. India is even more hierarchical, way more. Like in Colombia, we can, generally speaking, challenge somebody with more authority. In India, is less likely to happen. In the US, is very likely to happen. The US is not very hierarchical. It's a flat. They don't respect hierarchy so much. So how that plays out is that depending on the country where that company is, that hierarchical culture can play out. I think some companies could be more hierarchical than others, where there is more respect for the boss, or the boss is just seen as like one of the group. I think that I'm gonna say, in what I've seen, I also think that different cultures bring different values, things that are good. For example, I would say Chinese are very structured in technology. They are very organized. Not Americans, not so much. Americans are more creative. They want to think about different things, but they may not be as structured in general. It doesn't mean there aren't people that are really structured, but in general, different cultures bring different things. I think Colombians, for example, or Mexicans generally are seen as happy people, like the happy people in the team. Like in the companies that I worked for, they do once a year, they do a employee engagement, and they ask all employees, how happy are you working for this company? And every single year, the happiest people are in Latin America, always. Colombians, Brazilians, Mexicans, always. Every year, the people who are like not very happy in England or sometimes in Asia as well. So there is different ways of seeing the world. I think Latin people could be, very fun and positive, generally speaking, right? What I do as a leader, like how that impacts my work as a leader. If I bring, let's say I have an idea and I bring it to the team and I say, hey, what about this? I want to do this. What do you guys think? I have to be careful because if it's somebody from a hierarchical culture, they are probably not going to reject my idea. They're probably going to say, yes, a good idea, even if they don't think it's a good idea. Whereas maybe somebody in a less hierarchical culture would be like, that is a terrible idea. So I need to make sure that I am accounting for the culture in how I engage with people. Also, if I go to a hierarchical culture to somebody and I say, could you please do this for me by tomorrow? They're probably going to say yes. Even if they think it's impossible, they would still say yes. Whereas in America, they'll probably be like, no, you're crazy. I cannot do this by tomorrow. So I really have to find a way to ask, depending on the culture, to make sure that I'm hearing the truth and that I am getting the actual input from the person.
Thank you, Amanda. You just remind me to once I lived in Denmark for 2 years more or less, and I was on the phone with my mother, and and she was asking to me and how was my day and so on, and I was answering like sí señora, sí señora, sí señora, and then it was an English guy over there, and he asked me at the end like, what does it mean? Sí, señora. So that was so funny. Like, okay, how to explain him? Like, I have to, answer to my mom with this very, common culturally
Yes.
speaking in
With
Colombia.
respect.
So,
Yes.
yeah, with respect.
Yes.
And it was kind of difficult, to deal with this transformation of, becoming or adapting to the culture, because effectively when we talk about flat hierarchy, so it's very, very different how to explain it and how to deal with the differences. And it took me like 6 months more or less to get adapted to the flat hierarchy. So and I was wondering, I mean, you are like in this position of leading a team, and how we can just develop those competences in our sensitiveness to these multicultural environments, to this multiculturalism.
Yeah, I think two things, Irma. I think the sensitivity or the competencies were developed. I'm going to say two ways. One is that experience early on when I was 16 and I left Colombia to go to this international school in Canada. And I was surrounded by teenagers from 80 different countries. That was a shock to my system. Okay, I broke every mold I had. It challenged me to understand that what I thought was good wasn't necessarily good for the other person. I used to think that good people were religious people, like the 10 commandments, right? No, some people don't are not religious and they are still really good people. So I think that early on experience really broke my mold. And I'll tell you this story. It's a real story. I am in Canada and I have made a friend with this Muslim girl from Indonesia. And she told me through many conversations what it's like to live in Indonesia, what it's like to live in an in a Muslim country. First of all, she always covered her hair. She had a scarf on, and she always wore dresses, long dresses. So one day she said, I'm going to take off my scarf and I'm going to put on blue jeans. Could you please take a picture of me? And I said, sure. So I took the picture of her, and she said, this picture my father can never see. And I said, but why? She's like, it is terrible in my culture for a woman to wear blue jeans. Nobody can. And it's terrible in my culture to let my hair be seen. And here we are. Look, my hair is out. I'm wearing pants. I don't know what you're wearing, but that's completely normal in our culture. That's not the definition of good. But there are so many basic things. So that's again, that experience early on with so many people that were different from me taught me many things about how you can understand another culture. And then I think being the only woman in many rooms, being the only Hispanic in many rooms, has given me the experience of what it feels like to be different than others. And I think that created empathy. And so now what I do is I try to use that empathy to bring people in.
Yes, Amanda, thank you. And we have two questions here in the chat. Maybe you can go through.
Sure.
The first one is related to traveling or volunteering. Do you think that having some time traveling or volunteering in other countries before trying to get a formal job could give you some advantage in your professional life later on? If so, what way?
Yes, I absolutely. I believe that. And Irma, I just want to be mindful of time, so because I think we have like 10 more minutes. And if you want to switch at one point to Spanish, just tell me when. But I will I will answer in English. Yes, I absolutely think that volunteering, doing something outside where you were born, go somewhere, go travel, go volunteer somewhere else. It'll break the mold that you have in your brain. And I think it not only breaking it, will expand it. And once you expand it in ways you don't know yet, but once you expand it, you will be, I believe, better for any profession that you take. So yes, I would say go do it. I think that's helped me a lot to be able to have experiences in other countries for the job that I have.
Thank you, Amanda. And there is another question. Amanda, Diego was on research and he saw that you were at the Women's Leadership Summit in 2018. Can you tell us a little bit about what the experience was like? How did it go? And tell us about the other women you share with. So this is one question. And the last question is, it's very exciting to be here and to be learning from your experience. This is a comment in such an integral way. So first, thank you so much. And second, I would like to ask how the pandemic has changed the work environment. And as future professionals, what challenges do you think we are going to face in the new working conditions imposed by the pandemic?
Yes.
And maybe we go through the last one. Amanda, how was your
Okay.
experience being a software developer, specifically being a woman? Because we know that career is popular in men. And do you think that remote work is the future for us? And I think we can just switch to Spanish. So,
okay, muy bien. Ok, muy bien.
Gracias.
El Leadership Summit, creo que fue la primera pregunta. Bueno, yo de esas cosas que he hecho para hacer más de lo que tengo que hacer, es que a mí me gusta compartir información. Entonces, no me da miedo hablar en público, puedo hacerlo y tengo el contenido. Entonces, he representado a las compañías para las que he trabajado, las he representado en diferentes foros públicos, digamos, conferencias o seminarios dando charlas sobre tecnología, sobre liderazgo o sobre diversidad e inclusión. Yo soy una mujer que tengo muchísimo orgullo de ser una mujer en tecnología por las razones que mencioné antes. Entonces, en esos foros de tecnología, ellos quieren traer a que las mujeres también hablen y presenten ideas. Entonces, es uno de los varios foros en que he presentado. Creo que ese en particular, si lo recuerdo, hablé sobre open source. Sabes que estaba hablando de open source software antes, de Linux y de Android. Entonces hablaba sobre la importancia del open source en las compañías, pero sobre todo la importancia de incluir a las mujeres en construir sistemas que son open source también. Bueno, esa fue la primera pregunta. Creo que la segunda pregunta fue cómo ha cambiado la pandemia, la manera como trabajo. Bueno, la ha cambiado mucho en el sentido de que ahora estoy en casa todo el tiempo. Antes, yo les decía al principio, yo tengo 10 a 15 reuniones diarias, todas juntas, ¿no? Por video. Pues con la pandemia todas están enfrente de este computador, así como me ven. Entonces eso ha cambiado muchísimo. Creo que para mí como madre funciona muy bien trabajar desde casa porque yo puedo salir un minutico, saludar a mis hijos, volver a entrar o hacer otra, entre cosa y cosa, digamos, entre reunión y reunión, puedo hacer otras cosas en la casa. Entonces hace que mi balance sea mejor. A mí no me importa trabajar un poquito más, digamos, por la noche, si durante el día tuve el tiempo para estar con mis hijos. Entonces eso es algo que valoro muchísimo. Creo que la última pregunta fue, ¿cómo crees que esto va a seguir? ¿Qué va a pasar con nuestros trabajos con la pandemia? Bueno, hay tantas cosas que han cambiado, no solamente el hecho de trabajar desde casa, pero el hecho de necesitamos más la tecnología que nunca. Creo que eso es algo que quiero decirles, es necesitamos más gente en tecnología. Hay muchos trabajos en tecnología en los Estados Unidos y en el mundo y necesitamos más gente que quiera hacer esos trabajos, no hay suficiente con tanta gente trabajando desde casa, hay muchísima más demanda por computadores, redes, seguridad de redes, software, herramientas para trabajar de casa. O sea, todas las compañías que proveen esos servicios o esas herramientas, desde la más básica, que es los que hacen los chips. No sé si han oído que hay una escasez absurda de chips en el mundo porque con esto de que todo el mundo trabaja desde casa necesitamos más la tecnología. Entonces, creo que lo que la pandemia está cambiando, aparte de muchas cosas, es que necesitamos todavía más gente en tecnología que antes. Entonces, bueno, ánimo, si conocen a alguien, si ustedes pueden entrar en tecnología, creo que hay un campo laboral muy amplio.
Muchísimas gracias, Amanda, y un gusto y una admiración por tenerte aquí en este espacio en la universidad y por tener también representándonos en diferentes espacios a nivel global.
Con mucho
Gracias.
orgullo. Sí, bueno, y muchas gracias a todos ustedes por el tiempo, por escuchar y gracias, gracias a ti también por las preguntas, a Mónica también por haberme invitado. Muchas gracias a todos y bueno, buen día.
Muchas gracias, Amanda, muy inspirador. Cristian.
Amanda, muchísimas gracias. Esperamos, creo que no era necesario la parte en español al final, ¿no? Tu inglés es tan bueno, tan claro que no es necesario, no era necesaria
Gracias,
esa parte,
Cristian.
pero bueno, lo habíamos prometido, entonces teníamos que cumplir.
Para los de primeros semestres.
Exacto, exacto. No, pero en el primer semestre tenemos excelentes estudiantes con muy buen nivel de inglés. Entonces, muchísimas gracias, Amanda, por este importantísimo espacio, esta charla tan amena. Aprendimos muchísimo, a pesar de no tener esa estructura radical de una conferencia. Creo que aprendimos muchísimo de tu experiencia. Entonces, ojalá podamos volver a tenerte en algún otro espacio. Muy interesante. Creo que son muchas las cosas que tenemos que aprender de grandes líderes como tú. El hecho de que seas mujer también es bastante importante para nuestra comunidad y para todas las discusiones que hacemos en nuestro programa. Entonces, muchísimas gracias y pues un feliz día para todos. Muchas gracias a todos los que se conectaron. Llegamos a tener alrededor de 65, 70 personas. Esto también quedará grabado con el permiso de Amanda
Claro.
para que quienes no pudieron asistir se puedan conectar. Muchísimas gracias. Un feliz día para todos.
Sí, gracias, Cristian. Okay. Hasta la próxima.
Gracias a nuestra Larry King.
Sí, muy buena entrevistadora la profesora Irma.
Sí, y Armando que coorganizó también. Listo. Chao, Amanda. Gracias.
Gracias,
Chao,
profesora Amanda.
gracias.